Today I want to take a look at Remote Desktop Manager by Devolutions and how we can use this to quickly open a PowerShell console into our SharePoint Online tenant. So here we're looking at the RDP Manager. The most popular feature for this, of course, is going to be adding a RDP Remote Desktop session. And that would be right here. When you do add an entry, it has RDP, and that's how you connect to servers for Remote Desktop. It's the number one usage for this application. However, there is a little bit more to it. If you look at adding a new entry, there are other choices in the menu, and it is possible to add an icon to PowerShell. And we can add a PowerShell object to our tree on the left-hand side. In doing that, we can pick out a script to run and quickly open a PowerShell command session where we're able to sort of load a profile script on demand. A lot of developers are familiar with $profile as a way of adding commands to your local PC globally. Well, what if you wanted to have more than one, or you wanted to have different profiles for different situations? Just the same way that Chrome offers profiles, Firefox and Edge offer profiles, what if we had PowerShell profiles for different purposes? So here, one of the things that you might consider is using the Remote Desktop Manager from Devolutions as a way of quickly launching PowerShell with a different context. Coming over to SharePoint Online, if we wanted to create a client ID and secret that was tenant-wide, we would need two different pages. We would do app reg new is the first page, and then app invite is the second. So on the left, we have app reg new, which will generate a client ID and generate a client secret. And if we want to grant it full control of our tenant, we'll come over here to this Medium article, search for /tenant, and there is a full control XML manifest. That's the permission grant that we want to have over here. It allows full control at the tenant level. After generating these, we'll give it a title. We could just call it PowerShell, provide localhost for the domain and URL, and then click Create. At this point, we have a client ID and secret, which we'll want to make note of. Taking the client ID, we can copy it to the app invite page. So app reg new is the first step, app invite is the second step. And here we'll click the lookup button, which will populate all of the needed details. Our final action is to go ahead and create the invitation and then click Trust It. Well, one thing you'll notice in both of these cases, we are dealing with the -admin URL. This is going to be the tenant admin endpoint. Now that we've trusted it, excellent. So we now have a client ID and secret that provides full control of our tenant. And here in PowerShell, we can make a brief script that will run two commands: connect to PNP online using the ID secret, and then get PNP tenant site with format table. This is going to make a connection to the tenant and enumerate the sites we have available. Very short script, but it leverages the admin URL endpoint, just like before. We're looking at our admin URL, and we're also trying to get the tenant site results. This will give a URL of all the sites that are on the tenant. Now that we have a PowerShell command, what we can do is copy the full path of that, come over to Devolutions, and configure an icon to run just that one PowerShell. So back into the main menu of RDM, Remote Desktop Manager, we're going to add a new entry with right-click Add or Control-N. We're going to select PowerShell, and now we need to configure the various parameters. The first parameter is going to be the file name to the PS1. Here's our PS1 with client ID and secret. It's going to connect and enumerate the sites. Back over to RDM, we change this to file name. So the very first input we want to provide is file name. For arguments, we want to provide a little bit of detail on how to launch this script. That we want to launch it with an execution policy of bypass, no profile, no logo. So that kind of prepares the console session. The PowerShell version we're going to set at 5.1. I'm doing that intentionally because it has compatibility for older commands. You can play with it if you want, but for this demo, 5.1 on legacy. The next thing we want to do is run as administrator to elevate the permissions. Make sure this has all the rights it needs to run anything that it wants on the local machine. That will get us up with the basics, and we'll go ahead and take the name of the file and we'll put that up here as the name of the icon. And you can organize these into folders and things, by the way. So maybe if you're working with different tenants or somehow grouping your work, you may want to go ahead and make a particular folder. And then this script can live inside the folder. It'll run the same way. It just organizes the tree logically on the left. If you want to add other scripts and other resources, maybe grouping them into folders has some benefits. Next, we want to go to the application overall, file options. These are the RDM application preferences for everything. Under advanced, we have one part for PowerShell, and we want to make sure that we have this in place for setting an execution policy bypass, and that's something that we want to run in the advanced section. That's going to help us with getting the permissions correct. So we have the bypass in advanced, and we created our icon. Now we'll go ahead and click the open session, or of course you can double click. Both are possible, and those are good ways to go ahead and activate and launch the session. You'll see a PowerShell window come into view. The cursor will blink for a few seconds as it's making its connection and loading the modules. And there we have it, an enumeration of all the sites on the tenant. So simply by clicking an icon, we can launch a PowerShell window and invoke that script. Now you might say, why is this so special? I can make a script file anytime, launch a PowerShell window and go invoke that PS1 to make the same connections. That's true, but this makes it more convenient, it makes it more accessible, and it can also bring it into the fold of your other management tools. This RDP tree on the left might have server names, remote desktop. It could have other resources that you want to work, but it provides an organized way to make your connections. And so being able to save this into RDM will help you as an admin and developer to easily make your connection. And from there, you can start executing commands to modify settings, enumerate what's on the tenant. Maybe you need to restore a deleted site, change a storage quota, toggle settings on and off. It supports all those scenarios. Thank you for watching.